This is my grandmother, Halina Sand, née Pokorny, born in Warsaw in December 1935. In 1939, she was a normal, happy 4-year-old child in a normal family. Her mother loved opera, she had an incredible sweet tooth, her favorite fudge candies were nicknamed Little Cows, and the family went on holidays in the countryside in the summer. However, soon after the start of World War II, that life was turned upside down, and Halina and her family found themselves on a journey that they did not choose, and could not have imagined in their worst nightmares. Halina's childhood experiences shaped our family, and through her work with the child survivor movement, have inspired and educated many people. Poland was invaded by Nazi Germany on September 1st, 1939, and by the Soviet Union on September 17th. In early October, Germany and the Soviet Union divided and annexed Poland, but after the German attack on the Soviet Union in the summer of 1941, Poland was occupied by Germany alone. During the course of the war, over 60 million people died worldwide, which was about 3% of the overall world's population at the time. One of the countries that was hit the hardest was Poland, which had over 5 million deaths, most of them Jews. When the largest city in Poland, Warsaw, was seized by the Nazis, thousands of Jewish civilians were forced into the Warsaw Ghetto. Life became intolerable very quickly, and hundreds of Jews were carted off daily to concentration camps, where they would be executed. These were called selections, and anyone who was deemed too weak was picked. Halina's family, including Eva, her mother, and Miedek, her father, her grandmother, her uncle Michael, and Aunt Manya, were among the many thousands of Jews forced to move to the ghetto, where their address was 53 Nowolipki Street. There, the men and the women had to work for food coupons to provide for the members of the household who couldn't work. Eva did what she could for others by working for charitable organizations that sprung up. Miedek and the other adults were registered to work at Hallman's, a Nazi workshop. It was a piece of luck, because Miedek could sometimes manage to use the telephone there. However, they could not leave the ghetto's confines. Food was sparse, and starvation and disease reigned the area. It must have been a terrifying experience to walk around the ghetto. Halina's mother, Eva, said in an interview, "The parents in general died earlier than the children. The parents would give their children the last piece of bread, and would rather starve themselves. So the streets were full of begging children whose parents starved to death." As a very small child, Halina was very used to seeing corpses lying in the streets. Usually only Miedek and Michael went to the daily selections, for fear of losing a family member. The rest of the family hid in a closet alcove, sometimes for hours, hoping that the men would return. It was a risky move, because they had to remain silent in case a Nazi checked the house. If they were found, they would all have been shot. The plan worked well, but it was not foolproof. On one specific occasion, September 6, 1942, the Nazis pulled people off of the streets for what was likely their most brutal selection of that period. Eva and Halina were dragged in and realized that anyone who was unable to work would be taken away. As Eva recalled, "We hid our daughter on a cart under some luggage, and miraculously she stayed with us." However, the scenario was dire. They realized if they didn't escape quickly, they were going to die. Miedek formed the plans for their escape quite early on, by calling a Polish acquaintance who was named Edward Idzikowski. When the war began, Miedek had to give away the small family business, which was a transportation company, as Jews could not own anything. He gave this to Idzikowski, as he was not a Jew. This was a gamble, as he was not the most trustworthy man, and had been known to make bad decisions. Miedek asked Idzikowski to sneak them out of the ghetto by pretending to be transporting goods. He then paid the Jewish police, who patrolled the ghetto, to look the other way, and Idzikowski snuck the entire family out, only a month before all but a small fraction of Jews were taken to the camps. It was a very dangerous time to escape, as many Polish people would have tried to expose them as Jews. The penalty for hiding or assisting a Jew was death. The ghetto was finally destroyed in 1944, reduced to rubble. Almost 500,000 people had been herded into this area, and survivors were far and few between. Thanks to luck and her father's careful planning, Halina not only survived, but helped her entire family to get out and survive the war. Izakowski organized for the family to be taken to Otwosk, a large town about 14 miles south of Warsaw, where they would stay with a Polish family, the Jaworskis, in exchange for money and goods. Ava and Halina changed their names to Stefania and Helena, and pretended to be Poles, as they both had blonde hair and blue eyes. It was unlikely they'd be taken for Jews. There, Ava worked incredibly hard as the Jaworskis' housekeeper, and pretended to be Halina's unrelated guardian. The rest of the family lived in the Jaworskis' basement, where they never saw the light of day. There, along with 2 Russian POWs, they built a cellar in the basement to hide in case the need arose. Although it may have seemed like they were out of danger, their toughest challenge was next. During the family's stay with the Jaworskis, a senior Nazi officer named Lau also moved into the house. Halina and Ava had to protect their identities at all costs, for if there was a single slip-up in their aliases, they would all have been killed. For over a year, Halina, who was still only a little girl, couldn't refer to Ava as her mother, had to pretend her family didn't exist, and had to remember the backstory her parents had created for her. Lau also attempted to date Ava, as he believed her to be an attractive single woman. However, Lau did eventually leave, and there were no casualties. The family stayed in the house until the war ended, where they then decided not to move back to Warsaw, and instead went to Sweden for a year, before finally settling down in England. Halina developed a very skilled grasp of the English language, and went on to marry my grandfather and build a family together. She worked as a copy editor, college professor of English literature, and joined the child survivor movement, raising awareness about Holocaust survivors, giving interviews and talking to schools about the horrors that they had faced. Her hope was always that by telling children about the appalling experiences of the Holocaust, that she could help influence their lives and create understanding and tolerance. Sadly, she died in 2009, but just by telling her story, there is every chance that people will be moved and inspired to learn from the past.